Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. How is everyone doing, and how was your Sunday? In today's video, we're dealing with an unusual jungle situation, the double jungle on the enemy side. Now, if you're wondering what just happened, I'm farming half of my jungle, or more precisely, a quarter of the camps in the game. So the big question is, how can you deal with this? And more importantly, make sure to smite that subscribe and like button. That would be as if you were ganking your own jungler in the game. First of all, you'll notice the enemy ADC is struggling quite a bit, supremely tilted, and it all boils down to a battle of perseverance between me and him. The first one to crack and tilt will likely lose the game. The same pressure that's hitting their ADC is also hitting me, but I've got a slight softer edge. Why? Because I can still soak up some XP and gold by counter-jungling and avoiding fights until mid-game. On the other hand, their ADC will be forced to stay under tower for the entire early game. A sad experience, to be honest. Now, if our support had been jungling as well, it would have made this situation fairer, a true 2 versus 2 jungle matchup. But that's not the case, and we have to deal with what's in front of us. We need to find the best, most optimal solutions. First, we need a little luck. That means staying on top of our jungle camp's spawn times and making successful ganks. Otherwise, we'll be even more useless than our mid laner. Speaking of mages, yes, we have Morgana, but for some reason this guy is trying to play her as a mage. I don't know why, and I don't know how, but it seems like that's what Morgana players in LoL do. Pick support, and then try to play her like a mid laner. It is what it is. So, yeah. After an unsuccessful gank in the mid lane and 2 deaths so far, things aren't looking great. But considering the situation, we're doing barely average. Why? Because the enemy team has 2 junglers covering 3 sides of the map, while I'm just 1 jungler with 1 side to farm. It's like they're splitting 9 camps, and I'm only getting 3. They definitely have the advantage here, and on top of that, the map pressure is insane. Every gank can be a disaster, and I can't place proper vision at this stage of the game since pink wards are very expensive, and now they are a ripoff since I don't have any sources of income at all. I can't match this situation as it stands, but the plan is to scale into a monster in the late game. On our side, we need to play the waiting game. Sure, there's a big chance we'll lose this match, but our best bet is to scavenge whatever resources we can until the mid-game. By then, the game will shift into a second phase where grouping will work in our favor, not theirs. In situations like this, where you're dealing with a double jungle from the enemy team and essentially being forced into a corner, here's how you can manage. First off, max bite W. Why? Because when you're up against champions like Shaco, Amumu, Kai'Sa, and Sylas, they're all about chasing you down and engaging. There's no point in maxing Q to try and catch them. They'll be on top of you most of the time anyway. So, in these dragged-out chases and fights, maxing Q won't help much. Maxing W gives you better sustain and solid damage when they're all in your face. Now let's be real. You're getting screwed over early game, so what do? Build HP, cooldown reduction, and focus on staying alive. You want to survive long enough to have some sort of impact. Go for items that keeps you tanky while giving you the chance to be relevant later on. This isn't about being flashy or carrying right away. It's about not becoming completely useless by 10 minutes. So, we're trying to bring out the best in this situation, right? It's like when someone comes up to you and says, "Hey man, I can't live on $1,000 a week. You need to give me more money." And you tell them, "Well, if you need help, let's cut it down to $500 a week." That person's gonna go away, struggle for a week, and come back like, "Man, this idea was stupid. I can't live on $500 a week." Then you cut it down again and again until they understand what is essential to live, usually around the bare minimum. But that is the main idea behind itemization and your core items. It's the same thing with this supreme losing Volibear situation. You're losing? You have only a few select options. First, you max bite W. Second, you build HP, cooldown, and survivability every round. By doing this, you start to understand the core essence of Volibear as a champion. Volibear isn't meant to chase down people like crazy. You're designed to bite and tank. You're supposed to go after the injured ones, not the healthy targets. With this approach, even though you're behind, you can make it work. You're not going to carry early on, but you'll survive long enough to be a distraction. Build tanky, stay alive, and wait for your team to scale. The enemy team is practically choking us, so ganking or doing anything isn't easy at all. We are going to avoid unnecessary fights. Let the Renekton soak up pressure since he's ahead, and wait for the team to scale. Meanwhile, just farm what you can and don't tilt. Well, all this talk isn't just make-believe. As you can see, the score is a testament to our approach. Of course, there could have been many other ways to handle this. We could have camped one lane, soaking all the experience, just like dumping your problems onto other people. Or we could have tried to counter jungle and fight Shaco in his jungle. But that requires risky plays. sending the message that we're tilted and angry. Still, playing it safer in a risky situation doesn't always give you the results you want. And yet, here we are, with just 2 items, back in the game. I went for Heartsteel because if the game drags on or we mess something up later, I'll at least be scaling in HP. That way, I'll stay relevant no matter what. And now, you can see we're able to stand up to the enemy top laner, a solo lane Yone, who's been soaking XP and farm all game long, and we're actually winning trades against him. Some might say Yone is suffering from recent patch changes, but come on, you can't feel sorry for Yone players. They picked this champ. They deserve everything that comes their way. This encounter gave us a little more confidence about where we stand in the game. Sure, if Yone had his ult up, things might have gone differently, but whatever. I've been looking for a Baron angle the whole game because the enemy team is so aggressive. They feel the pressure, and it's tough to handle Amumu and Shaco together. They've both been making solid plays. Sadly, it's clear that the enemy team isn't happy with Shaco's double jungle approach. He went off meta while the team probably wanted a traditional support. Sometimes playing an off-meta style will backfire as early as the loading screen, and it can even start with your runes. Let's say you go first strike as Volibear. Sure, it's a neat idea to get some gold from every gank, even the failed ones. But one bad gank, your team's going to tilt hard, and they'll blame it on you playing something unconventional, even if it's not related. Off-meta picks always carry that risk. Your teammates are just looking for someone to pin their bad luck on, and it's usually the one running the weirdest playstyle. As for the enemy team's double jungle, if they had been on the same page from the start, we'd probably have had no hope. Why? Because double jungle, at its core, counters the current conventional playstyle in League. But not everyone knows how to execute it properly, and most people just want to copy what pro players do. They don't have their own personality or playstyle. They're just following the herd. Now we're reaching a stalemate. Every team fight has mostly gone in our favor, but it's not enough. We're killing most of the enemy team, but not finishing them off completely, and a few of them manage to escape while our own team is left with low HP. It's an even match at this point. The real problem? They've got a solid Sylas player. On our side, Renekton is carrying the team, while the rest of us, including myself, are just dead weight. To fix this, we need to force the enemy into making bad plays, but without taking any big risks ourselves or dumping all the risk on myself. Why? Because the super late game is not into our favor. What's making it worse is that Morgana is building full AP, and Orianna too. Sure, Renekton's a bruiser, so we've got the tools to clear waves, but it's not optimal for fighting against their composition. On the other hand, the enemy team has Shaco, and guess what? Shaco sucks at wave clear, especially with the build this guy's running. But the big issue still lies in Sylas. He's the one I can't kill, and grouping with Orianna seems like the safest bet. But if I'm being honest, Orianna's been a disaster. She's missed most of her ultimates. She's landed maybe 2 the entire game. As the jungler, it's on me to lead by example. So I decided to take charge. I told the team, guys, we need pressure, not objectives. Why? Because they've got Amumu and Shaco with double smite. Outsmiting them is not happening. We don't have huge burst damage either to secure the objective as well. So instead of constantly fighting around objectives and getting nothing out of it, we need to focus on mitigating pressure and showing the enemy team that we still pose a threat regarding their towers. It's about relocating the attention of the team to what matters the most, forcing the enemy to back off a little, and creating better positioning for our team. But honestly, in my mind, Orianna doesn't even exist in this game. She's like those little areas on the map that give you a movement speed boost. We completely lost track the moment we died around Baron. None of my teammates even showed up in the Drake announcement. The most optimal play would have been if the ADC had pushed with me. We could have taken 2 inhibitors and maybe even secured a kill on an enemy, but of course you can't control your teammates' movements, only your own character. It's frustrating because despite doing the right thing, someone is bound to flame me and say, why weren't you with us? We could have aced them. That's always the big what if, just an empty speculation. The fact is, my play actually had results. Yes, their play wasn't terrible either, but they didn't win because they outplayed. They did it because I was applying pressure elsewhere. My distraction allowed them to clean up a few kills, but here we are, suffering from a complete lack of communication. If we think back, we started off losing the game. Mid-game, we bounced back, started winning, and now we're right back to losing. In the early game, we struggled due to their double jungle setup. Mid-game, we turned things around by grouping earlier than they did, but now, in the late game, in full 5 versus 5 fights, we're back to square one. The only way we can win at this point is by catching them off guard. Renekton is carrying, so we need to play around him. But the problem is our Ashe. She's sitting on the most reliable engage in the game. Global, safe, and 0 risk. But instead of using it properly, she's holding it for counterplay situations. She doesn't seem to realize that we've got 2 frontliners in Morgana, who can back up any counter-engage. This complete lack of communication and trust is killing us. Our only hope right now is proper warding. We need to secure vision around jungle entrances and wait for the right moment. Patience is key here, and it might be the only thing that saves us from this mess. Now let's talk about the real problem. This supremely fed Sylas. This guy is the embodiment of beyond Omega level with 20 kills, and his damage is absolutely unreal. Honestly, that's on me. I figured I could tank through his damage while waiting for Renekton to push, but yeah, sometimes you just mess up. No excuses. We've got to let it go and move on. Now, for reasons beyond my comprehension, we're still hovering around the dragon. The only reason I even went toward it was because it was right there when I spawned. So I figured, why not stick with the team? Maybe something will go differently this time. I had a gut feeling that the enemy team was keeping someone in base to guard against a backdoor attempt. So why not join the herd and see what happens? Finally, after what felt like 7 failed attempts, we had a proper team fight. I'm not going to lie, I regret some of my item choices in hindsight. The Sunfire Aegis was alright, but not necessary. Honestly, I should have gone for Titanic Hydra instead, but then I would have lacked armor, and the Spirit Visage, while solid against DPS, was a bit of an overkill in this situation against instant Sylas Burst. That said, Heartsteel as the second item was a great call. It's like having lifelong insurance. Just need to tweak the build for the third and fourth items. I was delaying my resistances, and it hurt me in the later stages. But anyway, I'll save these thoughts for the next video. Let me know what you guys think about this build path or strategy. And, as always, this was the final play of the game. Shaco still trying to contest the recall with his teammates all dead. Maybe he knew it was over, or maybe he's just stupid. We'll never know. Thanks for watching. Be sure to do the usual. Like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, take care and peace.